what happened was I realized if I advertised from a person, Cat Howell, I was getting better results than when I was advertising from a brand.
Hey, what's going on, Funnelytics crew? It's Mikkel here. I am here with Cat Howell. I am super excited because I've been following Cat for quite some time now, especially being somebody who's built an agency and scaled it to 6 figures per month myself, and seeing what you've done and how you've transitioned and whatnot. So I'm so excited to speak to you and interview you and have you share your wisdom and your knowledge and all of those golden nuggets with my audience and everybody in the Funnelytics universe. So first and foremost, if you guys are watching live, let us know, #live. If you're watching the replay, let us know what's going on. Everybody say hello. Kat, I'm not gonna introduce you. I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to start off and tell everybody your not so humble, like, bragging rights, right? Like, where are you at now in your business? And you know, dust the shoulders off a little bit. You know, don't be too humble with your bio, and then we'll kind of go back through your journey. So let me know.
Awesome. Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and hello, Funnelytics peeps. I'm excited to be here. So my name is Kat Howell, and I'm the founder of 8 Loop Social. We're a Facebook advertising agency based out of Auckland, New Zealand. So, like, kind of at the bottom of planet Earth. But we figured out that if we sort of branched outside using funnels to attract leads, we could. We've tried to do the UK, but the time zones are a little bit hard there for us. And as a consequence of this, I've ended up building a full agency and a team and scaling it up to 6 figures per month, and then helping peers in the industry do the same as well, following the kind of system that we use to scale. So that's probably it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Nice. and so you've created this 6-figure agency. You still run your agency?
Yeah. But I gotta admit, like, I'm not that, it's about like 4 or 5 hours a week for me at the stage. Yeah. I'm just going through another operations director now. So I'll have to go back into the agency and kind of, when those types of things happen, get involved a little bit more. But the aim was to sort of have a business, because the way that I had it structured for so many years was it was draining the life out of me. And it was literally, like, I see this with freelancers all the time, where you're just constantly unable to figure out how to get yourself out of it, partly because a lot of us are perfectionists, a lot of the times because we don't know how to price ourselves properly. And so I after sort of 3-4 years and having 2 children in the process of that, not being able to take time off during the birth of my kid. Like, I'm not trying to make a sob story or anything like that, but I realized very clearly, okay, what I want from a business, and the reason I would even bother going into business, because I was never an entrepreneur growing up. Like, there's no point to do that unless it serves you and it serves your life. And so it was very clear to me, like, okay, this is actually the type of business that I want, something that's low maintenance and not necessarily like a Saatchi & Saatchi with 100 members and lots of overheads or anything like that. So that's the way I've sort of structured it now.
Yeah, it's funny that you share that, because I think most agency owners, most freelancers kind of go through the same journey. It was the same for me. I remember, and I've shared this a lot with my audience, but I was in San Diego with my wife, and I just had my five-month-old daughter, and we were, the entire trip, like, it was our first trip as a family, and the entire time I was the bottleneck in my business. I was on Skype calls, I was on emails, I was doing all of these things while they were kind of walking up and down the beach. And, you know, here I was working the entire time, and it was a disaster. And even though we were doing very well, we were also doing 6 figures a month with the business. It was a nightmare, you know, and it became a bottleneck. So I actually want to talk to you about about like figuring out how to remove yourself and how to kind of get out of your business and how to only work 4 hours a week within your agency and still have it run successfully. But before we go into that, let's take it back a little bit, and I want to hear your story around how did you even start a Facebook ad agency? What made you start that? What were you doing before? You weren't an entrepreneur, as you mentioned. So what was before the ad agency? What was before Facebook ads even? And how did you even get started in that world?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the entrepreneurial dream was triggered when my first job out of university was, I was events coordinator for a business association. So I was constantly surrounded by property developers, entrepreneurs, business owners. And I think I became good friends with a lot of them. And it's like that saying, you are the 5 people you hang around with the most. You normalize whatever you hang out with. And I started to realize, okay, these people are actually just like me. Some of them were extremely smart, but some of them were also fucking stupid. So I was like, listen, if they can do this, there's no reason that I can't do this. And that's when I created my first business, which was a travel website, and I was going to get bought out by BBC and you know, own a private yacht and all of that. And that completely face planted. Like it was just, I had no idea what I was doing. No, it was a website, so it was all the online marketing space. And of course, they don't teach you this stuff in school. So you're like, oh, I'll just create a website and cash in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, what's going on? No one's like buying or downloading this. I spent like $40,000 developing an app, and it was like, I mean, it's cool, but it was it's just really the wrong way to go about things. Like now I realize you sell it before you build it, you know? But little things like that I didn't really figure out until I face planted. But as a consequence of that, I started to learn Facebook and digital marketing. And this is like five years ago, which was a totally different landscape. Like it sounds like not that long ago, but 5 years ago, businesses were still talking about page likes, boosting their posts. Like that was the landscape. It was like an intern thing. No valued it except for a couple businesses. They didn't even have retargeting with Facebook ads. So it was like a totally different thing. And so I started to get hired from that and didn't really fucking know what I was doing. I was scrolling through actually last night. I was just like going through my business manager, and I found my original ad account from 5 years ago. And I was like, oh, no way. It was like finding a journal, right? And I was scrolling through the ad account. I had all my clients in the same ad account. Like it was the biggest no-no, right? Like you just don't, yeah. And every like second thing was boosted. And all the clients were in the same ad account. So it was definitely like a learning curve. Yeah. And then that led me to here. Yeah.
So first of all, that's awesome. That just that journey of like, you kind of, most people don't realize that you do have to fail forward. Somebody in the comments just mentioned fail forward. And like a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we kind of sit down and we try to map out this master plan. You know, I'm going to build this app. I'm going to become a multi-billionaire because somebody's going to buy it, of course, because it's the greatest idea in the world. And then you realize that actually you don't know shit and nothing actually works. And then you have to kind of keep going down that journey. So what was next? What happened after you got your first client? When did you kind of say, let's start an agency?
So I think it was when I started to get like really busy in terms of workload and thinking to myself like, okay, I need to hire someone or bring someone on board and help me out here. And I didn't really know, like, again, there was nothing really online about how to build, because I mean, there was not that many Facebook ad agencies 5 years ago. I think like we were definitely one of the first, you know, which is like, that says a lot because that's only 5 years ago, that specialized in that anyways. And I didn't know how to grow an agency because the industry is like so tight-lipped. And just everyone is like competitive, you know, and I still get that today. I still get a lot of people that ask me in ads or like on posts, like, why would you share this with people? Like, what do you, like, this doesn't make sense. You're just trying to create. So it's a very like competitive type of mindset that a lot of people have. And as a result, like, I had no fucking idea what I was doing. No one was willing to like share with me unless I paid them like huge amounts of consulting money, which I didn't have because I spent everything on an app. So I thought that the way that you grew was you got a bank loan or you get like someone to invest in you, and then you hire your team, and then the money will come. So that's what I did. I got a huge bank loan and I hired this big team, and within 3-4 months, everyone was like, had lost their jobs, was made redundant. And there was like, I had this huge loan, no money. I was like in the red. That was definitely not the smartest way to go about it. And so kind of like went through these yo-yos time and time again, and probably did that for about like 3 years at scaling, reducing. Maybe you went through this, I don't know, but this is what happened to me, where I was like trying, like I was like, oh my God, I really want to have a team so I can fucking step away. And every time I would try, it would just blow up in my face. And what I started to realize was that I was depending on referral-based traffic, and I was going to networking events. Like, I was part of the marketing association here, and I was going to conferences, and I was like really trying to put the business out there, but that wasn't my forte. Like, I really hate conferences. I'm actually an introvert at heart. So for me, it's like, I hate schmooze fest. I hate events where it's all about like business cards, and I just like to hang out with people. So that, I wasn't very successful at networking. And then referrals were like, as you know, like just amazing, but completely inconsistent. And you can have like, because you have a churn rate of about 30% in your agency, if you're not constantly topping up your clients, like you're gonna go back to zero after like a year, right? So what I started to realize was like, oh, the bottleneck in my business, there was a lot of bottlenecks. Like, I didn't know processes. I was like, oh, that's a nice word. Yeah, processes, you know? And it wasn't until I got it, like, which was literally like very recently, that I was like, oh, this is why these things are so important. But yeah, one of the biggest bottlenecks was the fact that I didn't have consistent leads coming into my business. And so I didn't have consistency in revenue, and I couldn't scale. Like, I couldn't confidently hire people and scale and hedge my bets in my business. And that was one of the biggest problems. And at the time, I thought to myself, I had like imposter syndrome, because I was like, I'm offering Facebook advertising services. I should be able to get leads from Facebook ads. And no one was doing this back then. Like, no one was running ads for agencies. And I was like, I need to figure this out. And it was mostly because I had imposter syndrome, because I was like, I can't be a Facebook marketer if I can't generate leads for myself, right?
Yep.
Now I realize in hindsight that like lead gen is a very different beast to like e-commerce, to events, to, you know, so you could be actually an amazing Facebook marketer at e-com and fundamentally suck at generating leads. And that's okay. Like, that's actually normal. But yeah, so that I ended up tanking like tens of thousands of dollars through that process. And I was really lucky. Like, my ex-husband was super supportive through that. And then it was like literally down to the hair's breadth, which is interesting thing I've observed in the entrepreneurial world, is that oftentimes it takes you to like be off the cliff where there's like no plan B. My ex had basically, the oil industry had tanked. He'd lost his job. And like now all of a sudden the whole family depended on my income, which was like completely unreliable. And up until that point had been like a toy business. It hadn't really done it was in debt. Like, it was seriously in debt, you know? And it worked. Like, it literally cracked at like the hair's breadth. And then rapidly scaled, like went from being a freelancer to like having 8 to 10 people, $80,000 within like 2 months, 100K the next month. That brought with it a lot of problems because I didn't know what processes were. Yep. And I was a perfectionist and I didn't train anyone and I expected everyone to read my mind. And then I got extremely frustrated when people couldn't read my mind. And then I was ending up doing twice the work, but having less personal salary because I had bigger overhead. Anyways, it was a hot mess. We almost went bust during that phase because I didn't train anyone. The team kept dropping the ball and it wasn't their fault. It just, there's no processes. No one knew how to work or communicate together. And I lost all confidence in my business. I was like, I can't sell this to people. Like I was doing all the sales calls at that stage in my business. And I used to have like a 20% close rate, 20, 30, and then lost all the confidence. And I was like, I don't trust our services. And if you ever feel that way about your services, you'll never sell.
No.
Like you would have to be a psychopath to be able to successfully sell, or you've just landed across someone that's extremely desperate, because sales is like an energy transfer, right? And if you don't believe what you're selling, or you're not confident and you're not showing up with that frame, like no one's going to buy from you, especially at those prices. So all of a sudden I had this big team, huge overheads, and then all the sales stopped. And I was like, oh fuck, here we go again. Like I'm about to like have to make everyone redundant, literally like a month or two after, like 2 months after hiring them. And luckily I had a mentor at the time who said to me, like, Kat, stop everything you're doing. Your number one priority right now is you need to regain confidence in your product. If you don't get that, it won't matter what you do. So stop everything you're doing, train your team, and start to get results again for clients, so that when you get back on, like there's no point you getting on any calls right now. It's not gonna work. And then that's the long-winded version of that. I don't even know what the question was anymore.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The funny thing is, you and I have actually had a very, very similar journey. And I feel like a lot of, look, everyone who's listening right now, please like listen very carefully to what we're saying, because you can skip a lot of these headaches. You can, if you pay attention. Most people have to go through this pain and like go to that little brink of like complete destruction before they're willing to like go out. But like if you're willing to listen, because it was the same for me. When I was running my agency, at the very beginning, it was very much referrals. It was Upwork. It was cold prospecting. It was doing all of that. And I was selling funnel services because I had learned funnels and I was building funnels for my previous clients and my previous businesses. But we were always using our funnels to sell things online, like courses and digital stuff. I never ever sold anything over the phone or had a funnel, but I had the same kind of feeling as you, the imposter syndrome. I'm like, I'm not even using a funnel to grow my business. Yes, I'm trying to tell people. So eventually we figured out the actual funnel to get clients, and it went like this. Like instantly we started scaling so quickly. Within the 2 months, 3 months, we were at 100 grand. But just like you, I was in centerpiece, and sure enough, as we started ramping, I kind of always tell people that like it's like building a conveyor belt, and like you're putting people on the conveyor belt and they move forward, but like you're building it and like poof, they fall in the front, and it's like, oh crap, you gotta keep building the conveyor belt. And it's like they keep going, right? And like, but if your sales keep going, you're just loading that conveyor belt and it's not built. It doesn't work. It's like, there's deep, and it was the same kind of thing for me. And at the end of the day, the processes and going through those motions, understanding that is so important. I want to ask you very quickly about your mindset, because I was speaking to a buddy. Scott Olford.
Yeah.
I was chatting to Scott a little while back when he was kind of, $750,000 in debt, which is absurd to even think about. But the mindset that he had to kind of, figure it out. And like, for him, it was like, he didn't have a fucking choice. Like he needed to figure out how to get out of debt. So he just figured out to, what was it for you? Like where did your mindset come from? Because you weren't born an entrepreneur. You hadn't gone through these ups and downs in this roller coaster. You took out this massive bank loan, and sure enough, you had to let go of your whole team within 4 months. What kind of made you keep going? What's your mindset? How do you look at that?
Yeah, I mean, I've never ever been like a woohoo person, and I love my parents, and I'm extremely grateful for the upbringing that I have, but 100% I kind of wish like these concepts had been ingrained in me a little bit sooner when I was younger, because I was raised with the mentality of like hard work pays off. And a lot of like, stories around wealth and success that has transpired since like the medieval, church days of the church basically saying there is sin in wealth and nobility in poverty. And thus, if you are rich, give us your money. Otherwise, you're going to go to hell. And what that's done as a consequence is like a lot of people have a lot of baggage around their self-worth of money, or like this is what I had to encounter, and I'm still encountering a lot of these stories. But I think before I got into the mindset space, which was only like 2.5 years ago, because of my mentor, I didn't realize he was into that stuff. And I invested like my last dollar on him. And he told me to like create a vision board and journal. And I was like, oh, this is so lame. Like, are you kidding me? But I did it because I had no choice. Like, I was like, I have just invested everything in this person. I'll just do what they say. And things started to happen to me, and I was like, oh shit, what just happened? And like, I would try it again, and then it would like, poof, happen again. I was like, holy fuck, like I'm onto something. Like there's something here where like my thoughts actually impact what happens around me. Like this is crazy. But before I got into that, I would say like when I would get back up, because of the failures, part of that was because of the support that I had from my ex-husband. So that's really important. Like, especially if you're a brand new entrepreneur, making your first $1 million is going to be the hardest stretch that you'll have to do, because it's a mindset game. That whole, until you hit $1 million, you're in your head, you're going like, you're not worth it. It's never going to happen to you. Success is, is for other people, not for you. So it's a whole mind fuck, that first $1 million. And so surrounding yourself with people that are already doing that, or already there, or on a different level, like the way they talk. You watch some of these reality shows, and I don't know if those are real or fake, but if like, I watch them and I'm shocked, because I'm like, is this actually how people talk? Because I'm always surrounded by entrepreneurs. So I have no idea now what actually goes down in real world.
Life. Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes I watch them and I'm like, is this how people actually talk? Like it's so scarcity, negative mindset. So protecting who you hang out with is really important. And then I think part of it is like blissful ignorance, like just being so naive to like, because perseverance is probably, I would say, the biggest component to success, because we're all going to hit snags. Like we're all going to hit speed bumps. And sometimes those speed bumps are required to pivot you to where you need to be. But if you don't have the mindset to keep you going, to persevere through those, you're going to think the whole universe is against you. It wasn't meant to be. You're going to quit, or you're going to start focusing on all the shit that's not working. And of course, if that's the headspace that you're in, where you're feeling frustrated, anxiety, anxious, stressed, it's going to impact every decision you make of every single second of that day. And you're never going to make good decisions if that's like your headspace, right? If you're stressed out, frustrated, like you'll never make good decisions in that space. So the biggest part of success that I've come to realize is perseverance, which means having a strong enough muscle, like in terms of your mindset, to be able to control your emotional refractory period when you encounter situations that you perceive as less than ideal, which will happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I don't even know if I answered your question here because I feel like I just went off on a tangent.
No,
Yeah.
because it is about mindset, right? And sometimes I think you're absolutely right. There's ignorance is bliss sometimes, and you know, knowing that I have that perseverance. I grew up with my dad kind of instilling my dad has always told me from a very young age that if you want to achieve anything in life, there are only three things that you need. Number one is you have to have a very, very clear vision of what that is. And you mentioned that with your kind of vision board, and that's how a lot of people do it. But you need to know very clearly what it is that you want. Number two, you have to take action towards that thing. It doesn't really matter what action you take, but you have to continuously persevere and take action. And then number three is you have to have full belief that that thing will become a reality, right? You, again, kind of as you mentioned, blissful ignorance. Like I believe without a doubt that this thing will happen. It may not happen the way you want it to. It may not happen in the timeline that you want it to. It may not, your plan that you mapped out may not actually work, but it doesn't really matter. As long as you know what you want, you take action, and you have full belief that it'll happen, it'll eventually end up happening. So I think that's an awesome way for you to share that, and that's really cool. So now you're at a stage in your business and in your journey. You've got an awesome team with your agency, although you're going to need to find a new director soon. But you've got a team. You've been able to systemize your agency to a point where it basically runs without you. And now you're teaching people how to do the same, right? You're helping people on the Facebook ad agency world. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what are the steps? Like if I were to start from scratch, and I don't know if you help people who are starting from scratch, but based on where somebody is in their journey, what are the steps? What do you take them through? And what is it that they need to know? If we were to summarize it in a one-page cheat sheet for them to go from stressful freelancer who doesn't have any sort of consistency or predictability to having a Cat Howell agency that is running smoothly, what do you take people through?
So if you want to do it properly, the first step would be to establish kind of your online presence or get the foundations down for that, because your authority and your credibility, especially nowadays where there's a lot of people that have been burnt by Facebook marketers or by agencies, will go a long way and will really, really help you. If you've never ever worked with a client, what I would recommend is that you take it on the chin at least once, really screen and do pro bono for at least one client to get that experience and that case study under you. If you're not trying to be an implementer in your business, which is fine, you don't have to be a Facebook expert to run an agency. You could just be an entrepreneur that sees an opportunity here. Then align yourself with someone that's really good at whatever client that you're going to be working with. So if you're working with lawyers, for example, align yourself with a Facebook implementer that has at least replicated results in that space at least twice. So it wasn't just a fluke that they did, which can happen. And I would say the first thing, if you're getting started out brand new, is get that experience and get a case study under your belt by doing pro bono work for a company. Now, the caveat to that is you have to make sure you audit whoever you do that work for really carefully, because not every account is going to succeed with Facebook ads. And in fact, many accounts will take months and months to crack. And what you don't want to do is do pro bono work and have nothing to show for it at the end of the day, right? You couldn't get results and it didn't work. You want to look for the easy wins, clients that you're going to be able to just step in and feel really good about what you're doing, get a great case study out of it. If you're not just getting started out and you already have experience, the first thing to do is to really set up your funnel. So start to generate leads within your business. And one of the good things is that you can actually outsource the sales part of it. at fairly minimal risk. So I discovered that I could get biz devs in the States for commission only. You pay them 20% commission. Yes, you still have to manage them. So it's not like a set and forget type of situation in your business for sure, but it will save you a lot of time, especially if you're someone that's not particularly competent or that great with sales.
Yep.
And then really the model that I teach is probably a little bit different to the way that I initially set it up. And it's done in this way because I learned the hard way doing it the hard way. Meaning I put unneeded overheads on my shoulder. Like I was so fixated on the idea of having an office space and having my own team that it blinded me to the fact that like actually, Kat, like it's smarter to outsource a lot of this shit while you're in startup phase and you have more established cash flows than to just go and hire people, because that's a huge responsibility, right? Yep. And you need to have very consistent revenues to hire people. And it's the same reason like CapEx, right? In large organizations, why would they buy a property versus lease? It's the same thing. Why are you going to hire a staff versus outsource? Well, if you're in the startup phase and your revenues aren't solid, don't buy a property, lease until you get to a stage where you can actually buy the building and put that on your CapEx. So the model that I teach now is basically the leads come in, you onboard them as clients, and then what you do is you find so there's some like there's some whatever, I forget the word, I'm having a brain fart. But if you, so let's say you land a lawyer client, what you then do is you outsource the implementation side of it to someone that's really, really good with this type of client. And that means that in that phase of your business, you're doing project management, operations, account management, probably sales management, you're managing your biz dev, but at least now you've got a more scope for scale, which can get you past the awkward stage where most freelancers get stuck, which is about 10 to 15K a month, because most freelancers can only take 7 to 10 ad accounts or 7 to 10 clients before they like really start dropping the ball.
Yep.
And so just that simple tweak of outsourcing and tapping into implementation helps, all of a sudden allows you to like go up to 20 accounts, which then gives you the revenue to bring on the next people that you need in your business. And you kind of like rinse and repeat that process until you remove yourself with an operations director.
Nice.
Which is usually the last person. Yeah. Now, if you're a good Facebook implementer and you like doing ads, then I would say like outsource account management first.
Sure.
Like keep yourself in your zone of genius for as long as you can or as long as you want to. Yeah.
You mentioned something that I'm curious about and your thoughts around, which is at the very beginning, establishing your authority and starting to build your online presence, which is actually not what most people think or teach or look at. That being said, I see Cat Howell ads all over my Facebook feed and everywhere I go. But what's your mindset around that? Like, when did you first start? Because I assume when you were running your agency and at the very beginning, you weren't recording Facebook ads and you weren't kind of on the surface. So at what stage did you kind of realize that, okay, I need to do this. I need to become an influencer and like transition from being, because I've always found it really strange. Like most entrepreneurs are behind the scenes and then like they make the decision to become an influencer or to put themselves out there knowing that like they're crafting this influential type. I don't know. It's kind of a weird concept, but when did you start to realize that? When did you start it in your business? And what's kind of your mindset? Because a lot of people are afraid to be, on the surface, that influencer.
Yeah, I think I had that too. So first of all, I remember like when I first heard my voice, oh my gosh, that was like, I shut that down so fast and I would not like get back in front of a camera for like 2 months. I was like, yo, this is not happening. And seeing myself on camera, I was like hyper. Now I don't even put makeup on half the time. I'm like, fuck it. But no, I was definitely like that at the beginning. And I think that's totally normal. Like when you first start to put yourself out there, it's like a very strange feeling because you're going to get judged. You're going to get lots of people's opinions, but mostly you're going to get judged extremely harshly by yourself. And so, but I think that's really normal. So pushing past that and, you know, you get like rewards, little bits, like people will go, oh, that was a great tip. And that kind of like fuels the whole thing where you're like, because there's nothing for me anyways, like I get such a high when people are like, wow, that like I got these results or this happened, or I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like that's an insane, it's the same high you get when your clients get really good results, right? You're like, oh, there's like nothing like it. So that fuels that whole process. I don't think there was like a moment where I was like, oh, I need to be an influencer. I've always been like a very on camera person. So when I was like 8 years old, I produced an entire play and I cast myself as the Little Mermaid because I wanted to kiss this boy I had a crush on in school. I cast him as the prince, and it played to the background of Celine Dion, When You Touch Me Like This. Like I've always been extremely on camera. And even then it was like really hard to like portray not a character, but myself, like put myself. So even then, so I don't think it was like I wanted necessarily to be an influencer. What happened was I realized if I advertised from a person, Kat Howell, I was getting better results than when I was advertising from a brand. For the simple concept that people buy from people. Sure. I think that's what propelled the whole thing, where then I was like, okay, let me post content, and I created ad hacks and all of that. But one of the things I've come to realize, one of the best long-term strategies that anyone can do is to build an audience. Like just invest in building an audience. You're probably not going to see ROI on that in the first year or two, but just do it, because if you have an audience, you have leverage. Like I have people coming up to me now that I dreamed would only speak to me in the past, you know, that I used to like idolize, and they're coming up to me and they're offering me things. They're flying me to Europe to like, and I'm like, holy shit, it's only because I have an audience. Like if I didn't have that, no one would care about me. They wouldn't care 2 cents, right? So, and as I launch other companies, like we're doing one with my sister now, it gives me so much, like much more momentum. So I would say, like, regardless of whatever you're doing, regardless if you want to be an influencer or not, like it doesn't have to be in your name, but start to think long-term about like, how do we build an audience, whether that's under your business or whatever. Yeah, I would really recommend that. And one of the best things is Facebook groups right now, because it plays on a really big pain point of Facebook, which is Facebook is running out of real estate advertising real estate, right? There's so many advertisers jumping on, and yet they have to protect the news feed. They can't bombard us with more ads necessarily, and they're getting a lot of pressure to keep ads affordable. So part of that is let's create more real estate for ads, which is why they're going heavy on WhatsApp right now and Facebook groups. Like they're organically pushing groups right now. So if you know how to leverage that, you can get Facebook to pretty much build your email list for free. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I talk about all the time as well. I definitely agree, especially on the audience side and especially the Facebook group side of things. At the end of the day, like you need to be able to have communication and two-way communication with the people who are following you or who are part of your tribe and whatnot. And if you don't have that group, it really does make it hard. And I think you're absolutely right when you say people buy from companies. I think people buy from people, right? They definitely trust people, right? They want, once they see your face, they see who you are. It's like, oh, it doesn't really matter what this company is or what they do. It's not just a logo, it's a person, which makes a huge difference. So what have you learned about processes? let's quickly jump on that, and then we'll wrap it up, because I think processes, is so important. It's obviously the thing that is like, I put it in this analogy when I speak to people. It's like basketball, or any sport. You have your offense and your defense. Your lead generation and your sales is your offense. It's the sexy thing, right? You score a goal, you shoot a basket, you get the point. It's like, that's sexy, that's awesome. The defense is what wins championships, yet nobody likes to talk about the defense. It's the boring part, right? Which is your processes. Like, how do you onboard your client? How do you actually deliver results for your client? How do you offboard them? How do you retain them? How do you upsell them? That kind of stuff. So what have you learned about processes and systems that you can share in terms of that world?
That I hate them. Yeah, I mean, they suck to do, but if you, and when I have to write one, I just like procrastinate to no end. I'm like, oh, let me just get another cup of coffee, let me just, and I'll just sit there on my laptop, and it's literally until I have an hour left of work that I'm like, okay. But long term, they will save you so much time and so much headache. Now, for me, the reason I never really established those before was because, like, I didn't get it. It was like, I heard the word being thrown around, but I was like, okay, but like, what do I write it down on a sheet of paper? Like, how does that work? How do I create a process that people can access and implement? And I know that there's a lot of different methods, but what we have found works for us at the moment is Trello has been really good in building out processes, because you can add relevant team members to those. People can comment. So once you build up the entire process, you want to do a run through with it. So let's say it's client onboarding or client exiting. You build the process, and then you'll have the team run through it, and you're going to encounter a lot of like inefficiencies through that, and go, okay, and people can comment. So we found that is really good for building processes. And once you have a process that has is efficient in your business and it works really well, then I would say like the next step of that is whatever, if you're using Asana, for example, then or whatever project management tool that you do use, you template that inside of that, so that let's say your account manager needs to do a scope for a client project, then it's literally like templated, and they can create the task, and all the subtasks involved in that are automatically there, and all they have to do is add the timelines and the people to it. So that tripped me up, because I was like, what is this, like on a Google Doc? And I know you can build processes in Google as well, sure. Google Drive. Yeah. I'd love to see that. But yeah, I didn't know like how to do it. So that's what I learned. It's constant. It's a constant thing that you have to work on. Yeah, you can't just like build it once and set and forget, because as soon as you add one person to your team, it's like, whoop, okay, processes change. Yeah. Yeah. But it's the only thing that will allow you to step away from your business. Like, that's it.
We do ours in Google Sites. Like we build a little mini site where you can kind of click around and whatnot, and it's all kind of standardized that way. But yeah, I think the funny thing you said there is that you hate doing them. I think it's funny, as entrepreneurs, we need to always understand what our strengths and weaknesses are. And one of the best books that I've ever read is Rocket Fuel, which is talking about the idea or the concept of a visionary versus an integrator. Integrators love processes, right? They love building them. They love making sure things are super organized and they run smoothly. And I think it's important for every entrepreneur to realize, what are you? Because you can build processes, but it's like I'd rather bash my head against the wall than build this when you're a visionary, right? So just a quick tip, if you are and you know you're a visionary, whoever is listening, just find that person who is that integrator that you can just kind of sit in a room and be like, this is all my ideas in my head. Help me turn this into something that can make sense for somebody else to understand, right? So you don't have to build the processes yourself, but I love that what you shared, because It's true. The only way you can remove yourself from your business is by having some sort of system or process around it. So I love it. Kat, I thank you so much for taking the time to share this with us. How can people jump into your world? How can people start following you? What can you give them, offer them if they want to learn more about Facebook ads and scaling their agency? Where do they go? Share it with us.
Yeah, I mean, probably it just depends how much of a prude people are based off where I can send them, because I can share some pretty random stuff. I would say probably the safest place is either cathowell.com or Facebook Ad Hacks, the Facebook group. Yeah.
The safest place.
Yeah.
Okay. What's
Yeah.
the most dangerous place? Just in case we got people who want to find out a little bit of the dangerous side.
It gets a little bit on the weird side, I guess, on my Instagram sometimes, or my personal profile. Yeah.
All right. Well, if people want to follow the weird side of Kat, then they go to your Instagram. Otherwise, if they want to learn how to scale their business, go to adhacks.com or just follow cathowell.com. Go to cathowell.com and follow there. Kat, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time. This was a lot of fun. And where are you right now? Are you in New Zealand?
Yeah, I'm in Auckland. Haley and Brooke just came in. We're preparing for our Christmas party.
Nice. Yeah. And
yeah.
Wait, you're not a Kiwi.
I'm Canadian. Yeah.
Oh, you are? Where are you from?
Yeah, I got imported by my ex. Well, Montreal mostly. Yeah.
I was born in Montreal. I'm in Toronto. There you go. See, Canadian.
Oh,
that's why I was like, you're so cool.
You're in Toronto now? You're in Toronto now?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's so cool. Oh man.
Yeah. I was like, the way you speak and you swear and all of that, and I was like, man. All right, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time. Enjoy planning your Christmas party.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
It's only November. Slow down. It's only November. All right. We'll talk soon. Take care. Thanks so much.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.